The way I plan to build this module is to create a sci-fi map where the players need to escape the place to win. The way that they will escape this map is by collecting keycards which are hidden around the map, and these keycards will allow the players to open the doors which will get them closer to escaping. The time this game will last is up to 5 minutes. What do I need to add into this game? For this module I will be needing to make a door, keycard, moving platform, and something sci-fi related. How I program my door to open. So first I would need to create a blueprint actor, and to do this I would need to go into my content folder, right click, go on to blueprint class and click on the actor. Then I would name this BPA underscore door. Next we would need to double click on the actor that we have just made so we can enter into it. Then what we want to do is click onto the static mesh that we have just added in, and on the right hand side we can see the details, and we need to click into static mesh and change it to a door. Now in the top left we can see an add button. We need to click that and add in a static mesh. Then what we want to do is click onto the static mesh that we have just added in, and on the right hand side we can see the details, and we need to click into static mesh and change it to a door. Then I need to right click on the static mesh and rename this to L door. Then I will need to duplicate this door and name it R door. Next we just need to move the R door to the right side of the other door so that we have two doors that will be slide doors. Now we need a collision box so that our player can interact with these doors. So once again click on the add button in the top left, but this time get a collision box. Then we just need to scale this box to make it so it's big enough to fit around both doors. Then on collision presents you will be able to make it so it overlaps all dynamic. Now what we need to do is click onto our event graph. Then on the left side of our screen will be our components. What we need to do is right click on our box, add event, and then select add on component begin overlap, and also add on component end overlap. Next we need to drag from begin overlap and type in add timeline. Now to open the timeline that we have just added in, we need to double click on it, and what we need to do is add in a float track. Now to open the timeline that we have just added in, next we need to right click and add key to curve float. Then set both the time and value to be 0. Then we repeat those last two steps, however this time the time and value will be both set at 1. Final step on the timeline, we just need to right click on both curve floats and set them to auto. So now that's done, we can go back onto our event graph and drag in both our L door and R door into our event graph. Then we can drag from update of our timeline and type in set relative location. Then we can do the same thing to the R door. Then if we just drag off new track from our timeline, we need to add in lerp vector. We also need to plug in the return value of the lerp vector into new location. Then we need to do the last two steps on the R door this time. Now what we want to do is find out in our viewport our location of the L door. Then what we need to do is copy that location into A of our alert vector that is linked to the L door. Then we repeat those last two steps, but this time for our R door. Then what we need to do is just have a mess around with the doors and see what location you want them to rotate into when you open them. So once you've done that, put the location into B of the lerp. So for this one, this is linked to the L door. So for the R door, we need to make sure the middle number in -240, and that is how I made a slide door in this project. How I made a keycard to open the doors. The reason why I am making these keycards is so that during the time of the gameplay, the players will have an objective, which is to find the keycards in order to open the doors. So, first of all, we need to head over to our content drawer and look for our BPA first person. Next, we need to head over to our event graph. So, what we actually are going to do is create a custom event that will allow me to add and subtract the amount of keycards that the player will have. So, the first thing that we are going to do is right click and type in add custom event. Then rename this custom event to add keycard. After that, we then need to create a new variable that will set how many keycards the player has throughout the game. So we need to head over to our left side of the screen and go down to where it says variables, then click on the add symbol next to it. Now we want to change this variable into an integer, which will represent the amount of keycards that our player has as a whole number. Next, what we want to do is click on our custom event that we just made, and on the right hand side of our screen we will be able to see the details of this custom event. Then we want to click on the add symbol next to imports and get ourselves a integer that will be renamed to added keycard. After that, we then need to drag out our variable that we have just created and click set. Then we just need to connect the custom event that we made to the set keycard value. We also need to get our keycard value as well. Then we can place that just below our custom event, add keycard. If we just drag from the keycard value and type add, and click on the first one below operators, and then finally link them all up to look like this. Then we will need to repeat those steps to set up the custom event that will subtract the keycard value from the players. So I'm not going to run through these steps again, but this is how it should be laid out in the end. So this event, when called, will subtract however many keycards from the player that we set them to be. So now, that is the final thing for the keycard system. Create the blueprint actor for the keycard. So, same first few steps that we did to create the BPA_door. We need to head over to our content drawer and head over to our blueprint folder and create another blueprint actor called keycard_BPA. So, right click in our folder and click on blueprint class and then choose actor. Then rename this to keycard_BPA. Then double click on this blueprint class to open it up. Next, in the top left below our components, we can see there's an add symbol. We need to click that and then type in cube. Then click on that cube that we have just added in, and on the top right hand side of the screen we can see the details of this cube, and we need to scale it down to how I have set it to be. Now, so that the player can actually interact with this keycard, we need to add in a collision box. So, in the top left where it says add, click on that and then type in box collision. Then, just drag that into the viewport, and again, we need to click on that collision box that we just added in, and on the right hand side we can see the details for this. So first we need to set it to the size that I want it to be. So here's how I have set it out. Then after we've done that, we then need to scroll down on the details until we see collision presents, and set that to trigger, which will allow the player to walk through the collision box and still be able to interact with it. Again, scroll down a bit more on the details until we see events, and we want both on component begin overlap and on component end overlap. Once we've added those two events in, we can head over to our event graph and right click and get player controller. We can drag from the on component begin overlap and type in enable input. Then we drag off from get the player controller into player controller, which is at the bottom of enable input. So what this will do, for example, when the player enters this box, they will be able to press E to pick up the keycard, but that's just an example. We still need to set that up. Now drag out from on component end overlap and type in disable input. Then again, from player controller of disable input, plug it into get player controller. So again, what this will do is, so when the player exits this box, for example, the player can no longer click E to pick up the keycard until they enter it again. Next, we now are going to make it so the player can actually pick up the keycard. So first, just right click and type in input 1, and then get the one below, that is below keyboard events. Then on the right hand side where the details are, just click on that white keyboard and then press E on your keyboard. What that does is it will just change it so it's when the player clicks E instead of 1 that what we are about to program will happen. So first, drag off E pressed and type in cast to BP first person character. After that, just right click and type in get player character and plug the return value into the object of cast to BP underscore first person character. Then drag from as BP first person character and type in add keycard, which is the custom event that we created earlier in our first person character. Then also set the added keycard to be 1, and then finally drag off the end of add keycard and type in destroy actor, and that is all for the keycard underscore BPA. Next, what we want to do is make it so the player can actually see how many keycards they have throughout their time playing this game, and to do that we will need to create a widget blueprint which will allow us to put things onto the player's screen. Widget blueprint slash keycard value. First things first, we need to head over to our content drawer and go into our widget folder. Then we will need to right click and scroll down until we see user interface. Click on that, and then on the right side we will have a few options that we can choose, but we are going to be using widget blueprint. Before we open it up, we need to rename it so it's something that will be relevant for what it represents and something that we will be able to remember. So I will be naming mine keycard underscore WB. Once we've opened our keycard underscore WB up, we will see on our left there will be a library. Just below there we can search for what we want to add in. So what we want first is a canvas panel which will allow us to gain access to the player's screen. After, we need to go back into the library and this time search for text block, but we need to do this twice because we need two of them. One of the text blocks will be named 0, which will allow us to program it so it will show on the player's screen how many keycards they have. After, we need to go back into the library and this time search for text block, but we need to do this twice because we need two of them. One of the text blocks will be named 0, which will allow us to program it so it will show on the player's screen how many keycards they have. The second text block will be named keycards, which will just make it easier for the players to actually know what the other widget represents. The way that we want this to be placed is so that it will be in the top right of the player's screen. So first, just move the text blocks 0 and keycards to be placed like this image below. The next thing that we want to do is make sure our anchors are placed around the box of the text blocks, like these images below. Then, what this will do is it will make it so when this appears on the player's screen, it will be placed just where we have set it to be. Our next task is to program the text block 0 to make it so it will let the players know how many keycards they have. So, first we need to select the text block 0, and then on the right hand side of our screen we will be able to see the details. We need to go down to where it says text and click on the clip pin. I've put an image below of it just in case for those who are not sure what I'm on about. Then we need to click on create binding. So this will take us to a function screen, which is where we will do the programming for the text block 0. So first we want to drag off get text, then type in cast to BP first person character, which will allow us to get the resources that we needed from the first person character. Next we will need to drag from object from cast to BP first person character and then type in get player controller. This will let the function know that what we are about to grab is from the player character, not anything like the player controller and so on. Next we need to drag from as BP first person character and type in get keycard value, which is the variable that we created earlier that will control how many keycards the player has. Once we have done that, drag off the top right hand side of cast to BP underscore first person character and plug that into the return node. Next we need to plug in the keycard value into the return value of the return node. Then it should come out with something like this. Then that is how I program my widget blueprint to represent how many keycards the player has. So, last thing we need to do is head over to our BP first person character and add it in this UI that we have just made, so then the player will be able to see how many keycards they have. Once we've opened this up, we then want to head over to the event graph and look for input mapping context. Then drag out from add mapping context and type in create widget. Then from select class type in keycard underscore WB. Then once we've added that in, we then need to drag from create keycard WB widget and type in add to viewport. And that's it. We have now made it so the player will be able to see how many keycards they have on their screen. So a quick thing that we need to set up is that on the BPA underscore door, we need to make it so that the player can only open the door if they have one or more keycards, and if they do open the door, one keycard will be removed from their keycard value. So open up the BPA underscore door and head over to the event graph and head over to caster BP underscore first person character. Then drag out from as BP first person character and type in greater or equal, which means greater or equal to. So once we've added that into our event graph, we need to set the number to be 1 because we want it so that the door will open if the player has one or more keycards. Then we want to plug in remove keycard into play, which is on open/close door. So what we just did is we made it so that the player will only be able to open the door if they have one or more keycards, and if they do, it will open the door and subtract one keycard from them. But if they don't have a keycard, then the door just won't open. So what we need to do next is make it a bit more clear to the player why the door isn't opening, and to do that we will need to create another widget blueprint that will say find a keycard to open the door. Otherwise, if we don't, the players won't have a clue what they are meant to do. So once again, we need to go into our content drawer and create a widget blueprint. Next, we need to drag off the right of cast to BP first person character and type in if, which will come up as a branch. So after we've added that in, we need to plug it in conduction from branch into greater or equal to. Then from as BP first person character, we need to type in remove keycard, which is the custom event that we made in the first person character that subtracts the amount of keycards from the keycard value to what we set it as. So we want to remove keycard along so that we can plug it into true from the branch, and also set the remove keycard to be 1.